good evening. This is Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk, and the lovely Maddie producing. If you'd like to join our show, be sure and call 515-244-0077. Here in Des Moines, when I came down here this afternoon, about 12, when I got downtown about 1 o'clock, it was 48 degrees.
Yeah, it was like 56 earlier.
And
I guess later on your timeline.
Yeah, well, 48 at the time, and I figured it would probably get a little warmer.
Yeah.
But it was kind of nice to see some melt on the sidewalk.
It sure was, especially after those last 2 weeks. At least it's not as bad as it was last January and into February when we had the prolonged periods of...
Well, we need to get Ed Fallon back on the case.
Well, you know, they actually just released a report. The NOAA released a report today saying that 2014 was the hottest year on record. Now, 2000...
I guess that discounts the winter.
I guess it does. I guess all the polar vortexes and everything that we talked about in the early part of the year, those don't count. The abnormally mild summer that we had in Iowa, at least in Iowa and throughout the U.S., doesn't count.
Well, we had
the record.
Go ahead.
No. I was going to say the record low temperatures throughout the rest of the season don't count, but it was the hottest year.
Yeah. Well, we had a brutal winter. Last winter was brutal.
Yeah.
And we had kind of a mild summer. I mean, relatively speaking for Iowa summers.
Very much so, yeah. We had hardly any days in the 90s. We didn't have any triple-digit days last year.
So now I assume this hottest year on record is worldwide.
Well, right. They're saying it was the hottest that the planet has ever been, despite all the evidence showing that global warming stopped 18 and a half years ago now. But no, they're still continuously trying to push this off, and they're going to try and carbon tax us and everything. And we talked about this last week. The Pope is going to issue an encyclical on climate change in the coming months at some point this year.
That might segue a little bit into something that I might want to talk about here. And around Christmas time, we've been kind of hit and miss on our shows since Christmas, obviously, because the holidays and whatever. But I was watching a show that was remembering the December 26th Asian tsunamis a few years ago.
Yeah, 2004.
And it brought to my mind these thoughts. This tragedy killed nearly 300,000 lives, and the financial loss will never be known. Many folks question why a loving God would allow these sorts of disasters to happen. Well, first, let me make one thing crystal clear. The fact we see one sunny day ever is because of God's love and mercy. You see, he has his angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding back the four winds of strife. But they don't hold on to everything. You see, when we have earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, volcanoes, and tsunami, God is allowing wake-up calls to this fallen, rebellious world, calling on them to repent. You see, when Satan became king of this earth, Satan, not knowing the laws of nature that keeps things in balance and harmony, doesn't know how to run the place. God has to intervene now and then to ensure man's survival, or Satan would have chaos every day. The fact the sun shines any day is due to God. He can't stop or doesn't choose to stop every disaster because there's a consequence to sin. Just as if you eat too much, you'll get obese. If you have too much sex outside of marriage, you'll get a deadly disease. God will not stop you from eating, having sex, or sinning, but you will pay a price for bad behavior. So sin has a price, and man-made or natural disasters both are directly related to sin. My job isn't to worry and mourn the loss of life. My job as a Christian is to tell everyone I can the love of God and the consequence of evil before they perish in one of these deadly disasters. I can't stop a tsunami, but I can make sure you're ready for it to come. By being ready means accepting Christ as Savior, confessing and repenting of sin, and then your life is in his hands. No one I know will tell me that I didn't warn them. The day of judgment is today. It's today you hear. It's the day you hear, the day you know, the day you were given the truth. It's not my job to make you act on truth. When he knocks, be sure and answer the door.
No, that's a very good point. I mean, you've got all these people who always try and bring up whenever they're debating about the existence of God. Oh, well, if we had a loving God, why would he let earthquakes happen, et cetera, et cetera? Well, he also doesn't. He's also responsible for the beautiful days like today.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the other side of the coin. What's also interesting to note, I would think, is a lot of these people who would argue that point would be the same people who are probably arguing that the Earth is overpopulated and we need to put population control in place, et cetera, et cetera. So isn't this the Earth's way of controlling the population? Don't you think?
Well, yes, but I guess we were told here a couple of years ago by alarmists like Ed Fallon that this global warming is the cause of all these hurricanes and stuff that hit Florida. Well, last year we had the lowest hurricane season in record.
Right. Lowest tornado season in record last year and this year.
So I look at it a little bit like this. If you got a steaming hot pot of water on the stove and you got an ice cold pot of water on the stove, how long is it going to take for both of them pots to equal out to room temperature?
Yeah.
So as the earth warms and everything becomes supposedly more even in temperature, that means the less violent weather outbreaks we should have. But they claim the violent weather outbreaks is due to global warming. Well, if the globe was truly warming, like the hot pot and the cold pot eventually steady out to one temperature,
right?
Where's these violent clashes of severe cold weather and severe hot, weather from the Gulf? That's where the storms usually break out, is when those two fronts collide.
Right, and we're not seeing that because the Earth is no longer, it has not been going through that warming cycle.
Well, supposedly we've been in a cooling trend for what I heard 17 and a half years.
Right, because global warming stopped 18 years ago. The sun is not as active as it was, and the fluctuations in temperature that we see across the globe are the direct result of sun and solar activity. So this whole notion that mankind is destroying the planet through our carbon footprint, the whole point of global warming was to create a boogeyman so they could try and put mankind as the main enemy of mankind.
Well, that's true, but the two main reasons that I see is more of a financial gain, and one is cap and trade.
Right.
You can't shove cap and trade down your throat till you prove global warming.
Right, and they need cap and trade to fund global government.
And Naomi Klein, in a recent book, I understand, basically acknowledges that it's an effort to overthrow capitalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that fits right into the socialist utopian agenda to shove socialism down our throat, and the only way you can do that is to prove the globe is warming.
Right, and they also...
Against all evidence.
And they don't even call it... Exactly, and they don't even call it global warming anymore. Now it's climate change, because global warming, they couldn't prove global warming, so now it's, the climate is changing.
I got to correct you. It's actually now... it's evolved from that.
Oh, has it? I wasn't aware of that.
To now weather extremes.
Okay.
Whether it's violently cold or violently hot.
I see.
Don't make no difference.
I see.
It's just violent weather extremes.
Oh man, the psychological conditioning buzzwords that they throw out there.
So it's went from global warming to climate change to now it's third evolution. And of course, I may be out of the loop and be behind one, but the last I heard.
And now they're going to persecute climate extremists, right?
Sure. Well, I guess I might not read the whole thing, but I actually had an Asian tsunami part 2. And as I mentioned in the prior post, estimates that 300,000 lives perished in that tsunami that hit the chain of Asian islands. Think about this a moment. Most, as I say, most Protestant faiths rightly believe so, that when you die, your fate is sealed, lost, or saved. There isn't any second chances or do-overs. You got one chance to get it right. So when God allows people to perish in those staggering kind of numbers, this speaks volumes to me and ought to you, to all believers. God has saw fit in one moment to seal the fate of approximately 300,000 people. One, this makes me wonder, when is my time? And am I ready? And that leads me to this. Many folks have read the scriptures that talks about not being caught as a thief in the night, and many denominations take those verses in conjunction with the verse that talks about two standing in the field, one taken, one left, to advocate a secret a rapture or a secret rapture. I won't engage in that debate for the sake of this larger thought. What the Bible's plain about, that when a person dies, they're sealed to a fate. So Scripture is warning you to be prepared and not let death catch you sleeping unprepared or as a thief in the night. Mm-hmm. Today is your day of judgment. This is solemn. Revelation speaks of a great quake or series of quakes at end times that will kill 1/3 of this Earth's population. So more major tsunamis are likely. Imagine one hitting Los Angeles or San Francisco. A major loss of life would occur. Is either of these populated areas ready? I doubt it. But are you? You who are reading this, are your friends, your family, your neighbors, your co-workers? There's much work to be done in a short time. But Frank, you say, I have to enjoy the lust, the gluttony, and the greed this world offers, and I only got a few years in between my first 20 and my last 20 to gorge on life. Well, is that 40 years of so-called fun worth trading for an eternity of never-ending life worth it? Only you can decide that. God can't make you. I can't make you. So what are you going to do, brother?
Well, they also had to put global warming out there as a way to possibly discount the notion of God's judgment.
Sure.
You know, the Bible does talk about earthquakes increasing and everything like that. So they got to have that story out there so people don't start actually wondering and turning towards the Bible. And then that also offers a replacement for God with the pantheistic spirits that you were talking about last week.
Well, speaking of brother, and this is just totally off the thing, but since you and I do occasionally follow some WWE wrestling, apparently Macho Man Savage is being put in the Hall of Fame.
Yep, they announced that Monday.
And I just caught an article on something just ripping the fact that it's going to be Hulk Hogan that's going to nominate him. And the article is swearing that Hulk Hogan and him was mortal enemies.
Well, in wrestling, you know, you'll be enemies for years and years and years, and then you'll bury the hatchet for a while.
Well, they're claiming that hatchet was never buried. Some of his living kinfolk is saying that they don't feel the hatchet got buried, and they kind of take it as kind of an insult that Hogan is nominating him. Hogan says, I think the Ultimate Warrior who died said there was a rift between them. He said if Vince McMahon and Randy Savage got along like cats and dogs, and supposedly that relationship between Hogan and Macho Man is described as even being worse than McMahon and Savage.
Well, I don't know. I know that they worked together. They made money together.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I mean, Hogan was the biggest star of that era. Macho Man was the second biggest star of that era.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see any problem with Hogan inducted, but I'm not part of Macho Man's family, so who am I to speak for?
Well,
but as a fan, I think it's proper.
Yeah, I guess I don't have any basic issue with it. You know, there's always people who are jealous of somebody that they're getting the lion's share of the limelight.
Exactly. That was my next point, was how much of this is jealousy and, oh, well, I want to be the one to induct. I want to be in the spotlight and everything. And I guess I can understand that. He's a family member, but they're also selling tickets to the Hall of Fame ceremony, you know?
Yeah. Well, that was just a little sidebar into insanity, so we'll quickly return.
No, it's important, man. It's important.
Yes, that's the important thing here tonight. But when we return from the break, we want you to join us again, and I want to talk about Jesus Christ, the light of the fallen world. This has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Canute.
On Webcast One Live.
RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live. We're glad you rejoined us. And I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk, and Maddie producing. As I mentioned before the break, I pinned this on January the 10th, so this was the day after last Friday night show. And I guess we might have got talking about this because we were talking about atheism last week, but Jesus Christ is the light of this fallen world. Have you ever been mused or incensed by an atheist billboard that opines this silly notion that Jesus or God, this world's done plenty fine without them? This absurd notion has infiltrated culture that man can evolve on and by their own merits. Even the Jews, God's chosen people, fell into this trap. They thought themselves passing judgment on Christ, but by rejecting him, they were pronouncing sentence on themselves. And this lesson is true for men of all time. Many a man delights to quibble, to critique something in the plain word of God, thinking by doing so they are independent of thought, and it's a sign of mental acuteness. He supposes that he's sitting in judgment of the Bible when in reality, truth is passing judgment on him. You foolish one, you busy your lives hunting sticks and straws and building up treasure on earth, but your heart is fast losing capacity to appreciate God. He can to give sight to those who could not see and take sight from those who could. His nation claimed we see, but rejected the means alone through which they would receive sight. If God had made it impossible for them to see the truth, then their ignorance would involve no guilt. But since they said they had sight, but refused to see, they were left in blindness, for which they themselves were guilty. Jesus said, your sin remaineth. In fact, the Apostle Paul was denied thrice and told, my grace is sufficient. My conviction is Paul suffered issue with lingering blindness after the incident on the road to Damascus for two purposes. One, to keep him personally humble, and two, to remind him the fact that the nation God had chose was so spiritually blind that he would eventually rebuke it. Lesson then, lesson today. The Lord gives, the Lord taketh away. Don't be on the wrong end of that equation.
Well, I think going back to the original point that you were making about atheists contending that the world does all right without God, if you want to look at a society that has totally been without God, look at all these. You see these stories about these jungle tribes in like Brazil or places like that have never seen civilization, and then they get found and everything. Look at their lack of development.
Yeah.
We've all started at the same starting point in history, but certain civilizations have been able to, for lack of a better word, evolve. They've been able to build themselves up. Why is that? You had your medieval times, you had your dark ages, and then all of a sudden you had this great expansion of growth and knowledge that has continued on till today that started with the Reformation.
Well, the Renaissance and Reformation.
Right. That started with the Renaissance, I'm sorry. And the Renaissance was sparked by the arrival of the Bible in the common languages, the printing press and everything. And that sparked education, that sparked spiritual and mental growth, and that has sparked technological advancement in society. And these lost societies in the jungle and everything, they have not had that. They have been without God. So the point of the matter is, without God, we'd still be rooting around in the jungles, and a lot of people would be fine with that. But that's just the fact of the matter. We would not be some utopian society where there's equality for all and all that. We would be murdering each other like savages.
Well, when the papacy was forced by God to let their foot off the neck of faith and science, then faith and science started to flourish. And the paintings of Michelangelo, or all the the building architectural designs, all the machine designs came about because the foot was loosened off the neck of science, and the foot loosened off the neck of faith. So they owe that to God.
Right.
But yet, what's God done for me? What's God done for us?
Exactly.
We've done plenty fine without him.
Exactly. And that goes back to the point that I said last week, is that atheists are the most religiously pious, the most religiously zealous people on earth. I mean, far more than any other religion, except for maybe the insane Muslims who are... I saw a video of, I don't know where this was, but videos of people cutting off some woman's head. I didn't watch up to that point, but it's a video that's floating around the internet of these Wahhabists cutting off a woman's head in the middle of a street.
Well,
because
there was also a video that supposedly I saw. I didn't watch it, obviously, because I have a phone that I don't really pick up. I don't have the player that I would be able to play that, number one. Mm-hmm. But they were supposedly some Muslim country. They were getting ready to amputate the hand of a thief. Mm-hmm. Had it stretched out, and I think it was a video. It might have been a still picture. But generally speaking, I'm not morbid enough to go, yeah, I want to watch that.
Right. Neither am I.
And the few times that I have mistakenly seen something, I went, oh, why did I open that?
Right. You can't unsee that. So so that's why I didn't proceed with all of that. But I'm just saying that's your religion of peace. That's your religious zealotry.
Well, now you threw out a challenge, a pretty bold challenge last week. We'll put up the phone number if you want to call and challenge David with your thoughts. That's 515-244-0077. And remind our listeners what you were.
Oh, yeah. Last week I said that the most damaging institution to the Christian church in this country has been the GOP. And so I said, if anybody wants to contend that, give me a call.
Now, when you say GOP,
I'm talking about the Republican Party at large has been...
You're talking about, you would be referencing the Republican establishment if there is...
Correct. The National Republican Committee, the Republican establishment has been the most damaging institution for this. And here's...
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right. Well, I would just say, being a conservative foremost, I guess I should say the proper word...
That's just it.
I tolerate the Republican establishment to a point because my conservatism, it comes first. So when they keep throwing candidates at me that I refuse to want to vote for, I mean, we kept telling them time after time after time, we don't want Romney. Don't give us Romney. Don't give us Romney. Now,
he leads in the polls this week in Iowa.
But now keep this in context. I think in the 2008 election, I think Romney might have been the better choice in that Obamacare wasn't passed yet. But once Obamacare muddied the water, there was no way Romney was going to be able to get up there and dissect a difference between his Romney care and Obamacare. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they was naturally going to go, for Obama. Because, well, this is what we got. We can't tell the difference between the two, so we'll just...
Well, the thing that you started off saying, that you're a conservative first and foremost, that is the thinking why I say that the GOP has been the most damaging institution, because you're putting the fact that you're a conservative before the fact that you're a Christian.
Well,
and I'm not trying to condemn you for saying that.
When I say conservative, I mean conservative Christian. I don't mean...
But you said conservative.
Well, yes, I mean conservative, but to me, conservative is Christian.
And that's just it. They've married the concept that conservatism is the same as Christianity. And if you're not supporting the GOP, then you're somehow turning against God. And that's completely baloney. Well,
if it got right down to it, the GOP may not believe in God any more than the Democrats.
No, of course not.
But
you're so married to this idea that, and I'm not saying you personally, but I'm saying that Christians are so married now to this idea because the GOP has successfully infiltrated and joined the two together. And this is what Barry Goldwater was warning about years and years ago. But they've successfully turned the Christian church into nothing more than a campaign arm of the GOP. They've melded the two together. And now you've got people going out there and saying things like what you just said, and they're inseparable now.
Well, here's where I'll try to distinguish. Maybe I'll refine my point a little bit here. When the ecumenical movement hits, I have no doubt that it will be headed by the religious community of Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson types, who have married themselves to the Republican Party. They're certainly not dupes of the Democratic Party. So I'm going to ride the religious liberty and the religious liberty angle because supposedly the Republicans are holding that up. Now, at sometimes I wonder, but I certainly don't want the Democrats' utopian society. I don't want their socialist programs. So what's the option? The option is the side that is saying they're opposed to all of that. But if it's shown that they're not going to stand to them standards then that they have thrown down, then I have no problem with Boehner getting tossed out. I have no problem with Eric Cantor being tossed out. I would have no problem with Mitch McConnell being tossed out.
But here's the thing. We continue to vote for that same party, which has continuously said that here's the ideal that we stand for. And then the establishment of that party continuously turns their back on that. And so we allow these people like Boner and McConnell and Cantor, et cetera, to perpetually be in power.
But see, we're in more agreement than you think.
Oh no, I understand
we're in more
that.
agreement than you think. But the way I'm coming at it from is, you can't make no changes when you're the party out of power. You can only make these internal changes when you're in power.
But by keeping them in power, that's perpetuating their notion that they can turn their back and do whatever they want.
Well,
Because they're doing all that they can to block those changes. The people that are most viciously attacking Tea Party types and true conservatives is the GOP establishment itself.
Mitt Romney would have been president in 2012 had 6 to 8 million conservative Christians voted for him, but they couldn't stomach a Mormon.
There was not a snowball's chance in Hades that Mitt Romney was going to be president in 2012.
If conservative Christians would have got up and voted for him.
I've
been told there's 6 to 8 million that sat home.
I'm sorry, but I called it before the election. I called that Mitt Romney would lose by 5 to 6 percentage points, and that's exactly what he lost by. Mitt Romney he's a turd candidate. And the only reason that he's even considering a third run at the presidency is because he thinks that he's going to fulfill this white horse prophecy that the Mormons have. The Mormons have this prophecy that some great Mormon leader is going to come forth out of the USA and is going to become the president and is going to lead Mormons into this new golden age.
Well, that's our break, and we'll be back with Frankly Speaking Live with Frank Holzhauser and David Knuck.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do. What type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Boom, boom, bang, bang. Lie down your day.
And welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk, and Maddie producing. When we left, you mentioned something about a white horse, and I'll let you pick up on that.
Yeah. The Mormon white horse prophecy, just this is according to Wikipedia. The Latter-day Saints, according to the prophecy, would go to the Rocky Mountains and be a great and mighty people. Identified figuratively with the White House, described in the Revelation of John, the prophecy further predicts that the United States Constitution will one day hang like a thread and will be saved by the efforts of the white horse. Some have speculated on the basis of the white horse prophecy that Mormons expect the United States to eventually become a theocracy dominated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The authenticity of the prophecy as a whole, which was not made public until long after Smith's death, this is Joseph Smith, is debated, and the leadership of the LDS Church has stated that the so-called white horse prophecy is not embraced as church doctrine. But, so, that prophecy is out there, though, so...
Well, I guess the point that I wanted to maybe make or pick up on is this idea of, as a conservative Christian, I endorse the conservative principles of conservative tax policy and social policy. That's where we might disagree a little bit, in that you're more of a libertarian in the social arena. But that's why I, as a Christian, half-heartedly support Republicans more than I would support, obviously, the Democrats, because I certainly don't want liberal tax policy, and I don't want liberal social policy, because I think that's led to the gay marriage, the abortion, drug policies, whatever. And I know we'll have some differences on drugs, so we don't have to get into that. But I just generally lean towards conservative social policy. So as a Tea Party member or a libertarian, I don't want to describe you or label you, but you would lean that.
No label.
Okay, you'd lean that way more, though. I think you'd say.
I'm just going to lean towards whatever candidate is out there telling the truth. And if you're going as a Republican and you're not telling the truth...
But you have more in common with the Republicans, certainly, than you do the Democrats, don't you?
Yeah, right. I mean, one would think, but I'm not going to vote straight party Republican ticket. And I think that's a problem with the Christian community as a whole, is that they're just going out, they're not doing any research, they're not listening to anything. They're just going out and they're viewing... Oh, this is a Republican, this is GOP, that means God's own party, I'm voting straight Republican ticket.
But here's the problem. You reach across the aisle to a Democrat, you get your arm broke. You step across the aisle, you get your leg broke. You stick your face across the aisle, they punch you in the face. And that's happened time and time and time and time again. These people, they need beaten. They don't need worked with in some ways. Now, they may be a little more willing to work now since they're out of power. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe the thing's going to be a total standstill like it was before. But, there's going to be some people that's going to be mighty peed off if bill after bill after bill doesn't land on Obama's desk and something happened to it, either be vetoed or something to appease these people that put the Republicans back in charge again to do something. Now, some people are saying, well, we're not going to really be able to do nothing until we get the Republican president. But, I think they can.
It's a centerpiece.
I think they can at least put some bills on the man's desk and at least show the American people who the real person that's stopping government is.
The Republicans have told you what they... The American people, I've said this before on the show, the American people didn't sweep the Republicans into power this past November because they love Republicans. They swept them into power as an opposition to Obama. They want something to oppose that agenda. And the Republican establishment has showed you exactly what they think of you by basically saying that they're not going to do anything about the illegal amnesty order that Obama didn't even sign in. It's just an executive action by Homeland Security, Jed Johnson. They're not going to do anything to stop Obamacare. They're not going to do anything which they were mandated to do. So why are we still supporting them? That's why I said last week, come out of Babylon. It's time to stop blindly voting for people who call themselves Republican.
Well, that's fine, and I don't even debate you in principle, but in reality is there's no legitimate third party. They don't have their own governors. They don't have their own Senate candidates. They don't have their own congressional candidates. And until you do, you get these so-called quote-unquote independents that caucus with one or the other. We had this Greg Orman over in Kansas saying, well, I'll caucus with the winner. Well, what kind of candidate is that to vote for? You don't know if he's going to caucus with Obama. You don't know if he's going to caucus with the Republicans.
Well, you got to listen to what his ideas are and what his platform is and what he stands for. And if you like what he stands for, then vote for him. If not, find somebody else.
So
we got to break this two-party system.
Yes,
this
but until you get a legitimate party, until you can get a legitimate party with a platform,
I don't think you even have to do that. We just need to be able to have a bigger platform so more independents can run. The two-party system controls what voices are going to be heard. That's the problem. You know, you have these national debates on TV, and it's a two-party system that's funding it and controlling it.
Well, let me give you an example of something we talked about this afternoon. We had a woman who had supposedly is the product of rape, and her mother was raped by supposedly eight people, according to her story. And there were some people that wanted that child aborted. And you get into this argument with these hardcore people, and they're doing it on principle. Well, what if you could stop 99% of the abortions, or 96% of the abortions, except for the rape and incest? Well, their first comment will be back at you, well, which ones do you want to choose to die? Well, I don't want any of them to die, but right now 100%'s dying. So wouldn't it be better to go after the 96% and then progressively go after them like the progressives go after our gun rights and go after things that we hold dear, like marriage, progressively in steps? So let's stop the 96% we can stop and then go after progressively the other 4% of rape and incest. But they're so principled on it, on this personhood amendment, that they're not going to take nothing less than personhood. So in essence, nothing gets done. The vast majority of people want, for example, they want notification of a minor that's getting an abortion. They want no third trimester abortions. You know, there's things that the American people, they want, they basically, by surveys, want this so-called right to choose by women. I don't think they really know what they're wanting. But they do want restrictions on it.
So I guess, how does that pertain to the topic at hand?
Well, what this pertains to you is you're wanting to cleanse this in one shot. I'm saying the only way you can cleanse is when you're in power, and you cleanse from within. You got to get principled people to stand up inside the Republican Party and toss Boehner out, toss whoever out, get some new leadership in there and say, we got voted in here for a reason, and we're going to get tossed out if we don't listen to the people that put us in office.
Well, unfortunately, we're failing to do that. We came, within a few votes of getting Boehner tossed out, but we didn't do it because there aren't enough principled people in the Republican Party to do so.
Well,
so why not just come out of it?
Well, but my basic argument by saying that is unless you have a viable alternative third party. Ed Fallon's talked about a third party. I've told him the same thing I'm telling you, so I'm not just telling you this. Mm-hmm. That you got to have a platform. You got to have governors. You just can't say, "Hey, I'm independent and I'm going to caucus with the Democrats." Or Joe Lieberman ran as an independent. It's the Republicans that put him in office. Mm-hmm. Because his own party was slicing his throat because he ran independent. And, well, he went caucus with the Democrats after it was all said and done. So you've got to have you got to caucus with people of your own kind, in essence, the people that believe in the platform you believe in. If you don't believe in the Republican platform or the Democrat platform, then start your platform and say, this is what our platform, this is what our
That'd be
people.
great with a third party.
Well, then that's what you need to do instead of.
Then that's why I say, Christians, maybe it's time to come out of the Republican Party.
Well, there's a lot of us who have. I called the Republican Party and I told them, I said, you give me a stinker one more time and I'm done with you. You know, where they gave
How many times are we going to say that?
They give us Bob Dole. They gave us Mitt Romney. And who'd they give us before Mitt Romney?
In 2000, they gave us George W. Bush.
No, 2008.
2008?
McCain.
Yeah.
So they give us Dole, McCain, and Romney, and we kept telling them, we don't want them guys. And they gave them to them. So
how many times does it take before you learn your lesson?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I'm not a registered Republican voter anymore.
Yeah, but I bet you voted for Romney. I bet you voted for McCain. I bet you voted for Bush.
I told him, I said, you give me one. I'm going to go faithfully kerching for Romney. I did not want Romney. I wanted anybody but Romney. But I told the Republican Party on the phone, the guy loses his butt, you're losing me as a voter. You give me one more stinker, we're going to part our ways.
So you said that if he loses his butt, they're going to lose you as a voter, right?
Yep.
Okay. So who did you vote for Senate last year?
Well, obviously, I voted for Joni Ernst.
Oh, you voted for Joni Ernst. Okay, who did you vote for governor last year?
But...
What? No. Who did you vote for governor for last year?
Well, I'm certainly not going to vote for Jack Hatch.
Who'd you vote for governor?
Well, I'm not going to say, but I'm going to tell you I didn't vote for Jack Hatch.
You voted for Terry Branstad, didn't you? So you're making the threat, but you're not carrying out on it because you're sticking with the party.
Well, certainly.
And I'll say I didn't vote for Branstad. I voted for Lee Heeb.
Certainly, I'm not going to vote for Jack Hatch because.
Well, you had a great candidate in Lee Heeb that was running independent. So why didn't you vote for her?
She's not going to win.
Why? She's not going to win if you don't vote for her.
It's like throwing away a vote. Now,
no, it's not. Yes. So you're tied to the Republican Party, and that's the bottom line.
Well, we'll get back to that when we come back. This has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Canuck. And when we come back, we'll pick this up.
State Concept Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
back to Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk, and Maddie producing. Let me make this quick point, because I didn't know if you had any stories you wanted that you felt was important. I want to give you some time to do these, so I don't, but I wanted to make one point about Jack Hatch.
Yes.
I talked to Jack Hatch on Ed Fallon's show. Ed Fallon had him as a guest.
Mm-hmm. Did you like him better with the mustache or without?
Probably
Sorry.
with.
Okay, yeah. Me too.
But he was on there, and they were debating Branstad's effort in going around the legislative branch of Iowa government by closing either a boys or girls home here in the state of Iowa. I forget all the exact details.
Yeah,
of
I
it.
vaguely
You vaguely
remember,
kind of remember it. But basically, so I said to Jack, I got him on, welcome to the Fallon Forum. Okay.
The inviting voice of sweet Uncle Ed.
Uncle Ed says, so I said, Jack, you sound like a guy that you like the rule of law. Yeah, he was for the rule of law. I said, so you didn't like the fact that the governor went around rounded around the Iowa legislative branch. No, didn't like that. I said, you sound like a principled guy. Yeah, I am. I said, well, you're at the same time you're saying that, your president is up there threatening Congress that he has a cell phone and a pen. I said, why don't he just take a megaphone up to the balcony of the White House and start dictating from the White House? Why even mess around with the cell phone and the pen?
And the bear trap closed.
And of course, well, that's okay.
That's what he said.
Yeah,
that's okay.
well, that's different.
Mm-hmm. What was his explanation?
Well, I
how that was different?
You'd have to go back to the archives and find out the answer.
Interesting.
If you could potentially find Jack Hatch on Fallon Forum archives, and I'm sure, and it would have been down here at the studio. Mm-hmm. So it might, and it would have to have been before November, maybe a couple weeks before November. So if you went back through the archives, you could probably find it. But find the answer he gave me back.
All right.
And it was basically that it was different. And, and I'm going,
I like that guy.
Well, look, you're no different than, he was supporting Obama's in round around Congress with his cell phone in his pen, but by golly, Branstad can't do it.
Yeah. So he's demonstrating a lack of principles. Hey, I don't have any disagreements with not voting for Jack Hatch. I don't. I didn't vote for Jack Hatch. I voted against Jack Hatch.
I understand your principle in doing that, and I understood when Michael Moore actually got down, him and, I'm not going to think of the name, the white-headed guy that's married to Thomas's daughter, Phil Donahue.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when Phil Donahue and Michael Moore got on their knees and begged Ralph Nader not to run. Because voting for Ralph Nader was going to throw away a vote, and you was basically going to get George Bush by default if you voted for Nader.
That's always the threat, though, isn't it? That's always the threat.
Now, Donahue and those guys made a principled argument, but in essence, if they ain't got no chance to win, and they're not going to win, in essence, if you don't vote for Romney, by default, you're almost voting for Obama.
Well, my principles say that I'm not. I'm voting against Romney, and I'm voting against Obama. And that's what I did in 2008. That's what I did in 2012. That's what I'm going to continue to do. Because you're not going to affect that change that you're looking for in the Republican Party if you keep funding them and keep supporting them.
But if they keep losing to the Democrats and the Democrats keep getting increasing power, then you will never get nothing done, because the Democrats certainly aren't going to be open to run a third party.
The good people who are in the Republican Party are going to come out of that Republican Party when they keep getting beaten.
See, I'm going to tell you a day, David, you're probably too young to remember this, but I can remember a day when we had in the Senate, we had about 38 senators, Republican, and we had roughly maybe less than 150 House members. Mm-hmm. We was just getting steamrolled. Those good old days when Bob Michel and And those guys, not Tom DeLay, but
Tip O'Neill.
Tip O'Neill, they used to get in the car and ride home together. Well, how could that happen in today's political atmosphere?
Well, it still happens. Boner and Obama play golf together all the time.
But when you own the aisle, they own the aisle for 40 years. So I guess what I'm saying, I expect things out of the Republicans, and if they don't do it, there's going to be some
but you
teed off people.
You made that threat. Yeah, they're going to be teed off people, but you made that threat before, and you continue to vote for them. That's the thing.
I voted for him this time to get him in power because it looked like the quickest way to put some kind of obstacle.
And they've already turned their back on you.
Well,
and
then
David Young is leading that charge. He could have been the deciding vote to get Boner out, but he stuck with the establishment. So,
well, do you have a story you would like to touch in the last 4 minutes?
The last 4 minutes. There was a story that came across the wire just yesterday. George Soros is the one who's been funding the Ferguson protests.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. This I'm not sure. Let's see. Where was this from? Washington Times. There we go. There's a solitary man at the financial center of the Ferguson protest movement. No, it's not victim Michael Brown or Officer Darren Wilson. It's not even the Reverend Al Sharpton, despite his ubiquitous campaign on TV and the streets. Rather, it's liberal billionaire George Soros, who has built a business empire that dominates across the ocean in Europe while forging a political machine powered by nonprofit foundations that impacts Americans' politics and policy, not unlike what he did with MoveOn.org. This guy has helped bring down the currencies of 7 countries. He was a Nazi collaborator. He's expressed no remorse for helping sell out his fellow people during the World War II. Mr. Soros spurred the Ferguson protest movement through years of funding and mobilizing groups across the U.S., according to interviews with key players and financial records viewed by the Washington Times. In all, Mr. Soros gave at least, and here's that number again, $33 million in 1 year to support already established groups that emboldened the grassroots on-the-ground activists in Ferguson, according to the most recent tax filings of his nonprofit Open Society Foundations. So this whole Ferguson thing has, like we said, it has been absolutely latched onto by people who are trying to foment discontent and even up to a civil war in this country.
I wonder how much Al Sharpton's organization gets funded by Soros.
That wouldn't surprise me. Here's the thing, though. You've got all these liberals who are always trying to make the Koch brothers as these pit demons from hell. Oh, the Koch brothers are... More money comes in to the Democrat organizations from billionaires than goes into Republican.
Actually, the Kochs are pretty transparent what their agenda is. If you look them up on the internet, they're pretty transparent with their agenda, and they're not the most conservative
They fund
guys
Democrats.
in the world.
They fund Democrats as well. But
so how do they get to be made out the boogeyman?
Because it's propaganda. That's what it is. It's propaganda for weak-minded people who are still stuck in this class warfare model.
Well, it's tearing the fabric of this country apart, pitting the rich against the poor, the young against the old, men against women.
It's a divide and conquer tactic.
Black against white. It's tearing the fabric of this country apart. And if some adults in the room don't get a hold of it,
well, that's what you get when you go away from being a melting pot, like we were talking about last week, to being a fruit salad.
Well, Angela Merkel of Germany, the chancellor, had it right that multiculturalism is an utter failure.
Right.
That's this week's episode of Frankly Speaking Live.com. And this is Frank Holzhauser, your host, and my co-host, David Kaniuk. And we shall join you again next week, same time.
Unless the global warming gets us.
Unless it snows 3 foot between now and next week, or the snow melt is so bad.
The global warming is coming.
The snow melt is so bad that we have to raft our way down to the studio.
Yeah. See you next week.
See you next week.